Look, some guys in the mainstream media are smart, and I'll give Dave Weigel a shout out here. He's been following this probably the closest of anyone in the press. And obviously the Intercept's done a wonderful job. Ryan Grimm's there tonight. He's doing it for the Young Turks, but he's also, of course, a huge part of the Intercept. And they've done a great job following this. They're not really mainstream media anyway. But for all those guys, it's amazing that they haven't caught on. If I was the New York Times after missing Ocasio-Cortez, like, Delaware's not that far. Let's send so. I will have to ask Ryan. I think we're going to talk to him later tonight. Maybe they are there. But if I was a Washington Post, I'd send someone because I think like winning incumbent losing a Senate seat would be huge. And if Kerri does win afterwards, they'll be like, "Whoa, my God, what is he doing?" But guys, are you not paying?
Book him,
right? But are you not paying attention? She could obviously win. Look at all these upset victories that progressives have had, one after another after another. And are you not savvy enough to realize how small a state Delaware is, and hence the volunteers that Progressive Army shows up with could make a big, big difference in a small state?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is largely no, they're not that savvy.
Yeah, it appears that Dave has been trying. I've noticed him tweeting out articles from some of the reporters at The Intercept. We had a couple yesterday. Oh man, days fly by. Yesterday we had Aida Chavez of The Intercept on, who's been following many of these races to break down David Garcia in Arizona. And he's been tweeting out those links and stuff like that. So he apparently is trying to keep up with this. I don't know in terms of like the big cable shows and stuff like that. I mean, they were all in a rush to have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on after she won. But I don't know, I mean, did they do that with Gillum before his race? Did they do that with Ayanna? Did they do that with anyone? Honestly, I don't know. So even in that situation where they appeared to be scrambling to at least appear to have learned a lesson, I don't know that they did learn the lesson. They certainly didn't apply it in the next month or two.
Yeah. No, it doesn't seem like they applied it at all. So, and obviously, Kerri Harris has a ton of volunteers. Some of the Just Democrat leaders went to her race like they did with Ocasio-Cortez. So that's why we, again, are a little bit optimistic about this, given a lot of the right metrics lining up on her side, and metrics that traditional press might not pay much attention to, but that has proven decisive in these elections. It's not hopeful thinking. You guys have seen it in election night after election night and how it's made a difference. By the way, another fun, cool fact, I'll get to that in a second. The results are supposed to come in now. Are there any results?
I just checked a second ago, I don't see results. I did want to say something because you talked about the traditional metrics that they pay attention to. And one thing that really shocks me about the media is obviously when it comes to these races, if they talk about primaries, which they generally don't, as we often say, what they will talk about is how much money you've been able to raise. And they talk about that a lot. But even with all the time that they spend on how much money they raise, they don't break it down any farther than the sheer amount. Like, so you said you predicted that he had gotten about 4% from small dollar donations. It's 2.86% according to Open Secrets. Like, I found that in 30 seconds. How do they not even mention that? Like, okay, you say he's raised $2 million or whatever. Okay, how much of that was coming from actual people? And the thing was, it's bad in two ways. First of all, small dollar donations below $200 is less than 3%. But even large individual contributions, which are still ostensibly people, that's 35%. 62% just comes from PACs. Yeah. It's as divorced from actual human experience as money can possibly be. And that breakdown that we just revealed for you, have you ever seen that on CNN or MSNBC? It's not complicated. I didn't even script anything. We didn't even have any graphics to show you.
Yeah. No, look, sometimes I feel bad saying it. I don't revel in it at all, but I really think they're not very good at their job. And I know that they would probably be deeply offended at that. And that's why I feel bad saying it. But it's true. I mean, if you are telling people Tom Carper is the presumptive winner, and you have this. Now he's an incumbent, so it's a little bit different. But even with non-incumbent races, they just say whoever has more money is more likely to win. Okay, that's a fair point. Okay, but then you got to move on to the next layer. They do frame it as if that means that they are somehow popular, and that's what they said about Jeb Bush. I mean, how many times do you have to be wrong before you realize, hey, maybe money is not an indication that you're popular, and that there are other factors involved, and it depends on the race. if it's a sleepy race in the middle of Wyoming that nobody's paying attention to, and one guy has 10 times the amount of money as the other one, another one doesn't have volunteers or doesn't have anything to hang his hat on, yeah, he's toast, he's gonna lose, okay? So on the other hand, if there are other factors like Jeb Bush has a lot more money than Donald Trump and others in the presidential race, but there's so much free media in a presidential race, so that money doesn't matter as much. Can you just go one more layer to do that analysis?
Yeah.
And time after time, the establishment media doesn't. And now it might be because it might be because of their financial situation. And hey, we like those political advertising that goes to us, and that's money in our pocket. And so it's not that Wolf Blitzer thinks that or Anderson Cooper thinks that. It's just a top-down mentality that soaks into the organization. And it might just be that they're not very good at their job. Like, does Anderson Cooper understand this concept that John talked about? He's never talked about it on air.
I'm sure he gets it, he just doesn't think about it. Or doesn't talk about it at the very least.
And most importantly, whatever his intent is, or his intellect is, or his acumen is in regards to politics, he certainly doesn't care. He doesn't think it's a relevant thing to discuss that all the money is coming from PACs. And so that is people looking to buy your votes.
Yeah.
And in fact, I remember Anderson Cooper's derisively, skeptically asking Bernie Sanders, are you saying that Hillary Clinton taking money from these organizations might mean that that affected her vote?
Yeah.
And Bernie's too nice. Of course, what I would have said, goddamn right, that's what I'm saying, right? I think she is fundamentally corrupt and the American people know it. And
you don't buy something unless you want to own it.
Yes, and the point I always make that I have to confess I haven't seen anywhere else, maybe it's because I come from a business background, I went to business school, I run a company, is that you don't give a second time unless you got return on investment. And so Tom Carper for decades has been taking money from corporations because they keep getting return on investment.
Yeah.
And the CNNs, the MSNBCs of the world never ever talk about it. MSNBC and primetime is theoretically progressive. When's the last time you saw them talking about, hey, look, this Democrat is taking all this PAC money, is taking all this corporate money. Well, obviously they're getting something in return. Never, almost never. It's not because they're bad people. Chris Hayes is a really good guy, he's a really smart guy, but it's top down. It just, the whole organization says, don't pay attention to that. But in races like this, them not paying attention to it might catch up with them. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.